Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Chris Jarvis. And I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right.
You did.
Help me. Thank
You
you
did.
for
You did
saying
well.
the first try. Okay, we never spoke before, and I'm so happy that you are open to do this interview. I want to introduce you. No, you didn't put what do I know about you? You are streaming from Texas now, and you have a statement that says see differently, business differently, and be the giraffe. And I
Correct.
love giraffes. I saw them in nature, if I can say this, when I was in Senegal, in Africa, not for shooting, but for observing. And I see it in your background. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and the giraffe?
Sure. Let's see. I did a podcast 2 years ago. Surviving ain't thriving. Be the giraffe, and it's a story about how people are so afraid of making mistakes that just surviving, just getting by, is the exact same thing that causes them to not get ahead and not thrive and not reach great levels of success and not be happy, not be fulfilled. And what's interesting about this with the Be the Giraffe as the subtitle, it's the name of my new book that's coming out in June. It's on Amazon for pre-order now. um, I've written 19 books, and Be the Giraffe will be the first big hit international bestseller for sure. It's the best thing I've ever written. And the story with the TED Talk was it went viral, and I think 4.5 million people have viewed it at this point in 2 years. So the message apparently of people so worried about surviving and that survival instinct is the thing that and they're so worried about not falling down, not getting canceled, not failing, not losing money. That focus or that energy is the opposite of inspiration versus trying to achieve, reach out, get somewhere higher. The giraffe, which I saw in Africa in 2003, big inspiration for me. Also, photo safari, not shooting anything. Um, the giraffe I found is the only animal that has evolved to become more vulnerable. It it stuck its neck out literally, while every other animal learns to protect a neck, whether they have spiky quills or they exude a poisonous secretion or a tortoise can pull its head back inside the shell. Um, Animals climb trees and they burrow underground. All things the giraffe can't do. But this vulnerability of making the neck bigger allows the giraffe to see things others can't. So it rises above, changes its perspective, and then it can reach things others won't. So it can eat from leaves of trees where every other animal has to eat grass. And trees have the ability to survive in places that grasses don't, because grass needs water at the surface, trees need water underneath the surface. So you'll often see trees in the desert. So the book Be the Giraffe is about 14 cool lessons about a giraffe, and then how do you apply that in your personal life to reach higher, and how do you apply it in business to get ahead, stand out and get ahead. So for me, the giraffe is the symbol. It's all about sticking your neck out, seeing things others can't, reaching heights others won't. And for me, that inspiration is the everything starts from vulnerability, talking to people, sharing things, connecting, asking questions, admitting you don't know, being willing to fail. I mean, that to me, that is the inspiring message that landed with me and what I spend most of my time helping people, whether it's entrepreneurs launching companies or I have a lot of clients. A big part of my practice is helping millionaires that want to become billionaires. Things that big dreams, big hopes, and seemingly defying the odds. You know, that's the space that I play in. So inspiration is a huge part of it.
Yeah, so I'm your client. to become billionaire. These are the right vibes. Thank you so much for mentioning and sharing. Of course, now I know more about the giraffe, and we know the examples in nature, like the eagle or the lion, always pointed out as powerful and whatever, kings of the animals, something like that. I love your approach with the giraffe that gives new perspectives. And what inspires you in your life in general, and also to write the book about giraffes? I think you also, so you already mentioned about your safari. What else?
Yeah, what inspires me? I'm probably, I'd say inspiration comes from two areas. For me, it's there's the head, so things that I think about, things that people overcoming great odds. I was a mathematician, so numbers mean a lot to me. I like seeing great accomplishment. I live for intellectual stimulation, so I don't want to do the same thing twice. I don't I like taking on new challenges. I like doing something different. I always was that way. I probably was much more comfortable being different from a very young age than most. So I find most of the challenges I run into come from me when I slide into wanting to fit in or worried what other people think about me. That when those moments happen, that's death for me. It's trying to fit into the herd. So one of the taglines, break free from the herd. I like seeing people do things that are completely different. So I get very inspired by new models, new ideas, new approaches. So that's the head part. The other part is I want to do things that are fulfilling. So things that help other people. So I'm on the board of a medical school, I'm on the board of a business school, I'm working on economic development in rural communities. I'm working on, I mean, the helping people who can't help themselves is a big part of my life. And I had a sister who, a lot of mental illness, transgender, long before it was even talked about, was over medicated to death. Um, and for me, there was this, in her early 40s. So for me, a big part of this is being grateful for the gifts that I was giving, but also being sensitive to um, a lot of people aren't. So, I really balance the what's intellectually stimulating with what's emotionally fulfilling, and I would say those two things drive me. And then, as a mathematician, I try to find ways to do those things that are big enough so they're exciting, and then they become very profitable. And they work when you're solving big problems. Is just large amounts of people interested, or there's large amounts of capital invested. So that's my inspiration, is some in the head and some in the heart.
Wow, I love that. I never thought about this way. Okay, I learned something new. Thank you so much. And who inspires you? You mentioned your sister. Who else?
Who It changes every day. I'd say there's people. I look to other people a little bit, or I can admire things that people do. There's a clip. There's a clip of Matthew McConaughey receiving an Academy Award, and they had asked him who his hero was, and he said, "My hero is me in 10 years." And not to sound narcissistic, but that idea of being inspired by the person you hope to become, you're chasing that, is really, I found that very inspiring, and not in a superhero, I'm the best, look at me kind of thing. But if I don't spend a lot of time comparing myself to other people, I don't know what their journey is. So I see things and I find great joy and, I guess, some inspiration by seeing people do different things. But I almost immediately, when I see those things, look back at myself. Maybe it's hypercritical. Maybe it's really, I don't know. It's somewhere between uh, super critical or hypercritical and self-aware. And I don't know. It probably goes back and forth depending on the day. But I'll ask myself, when I see something, why am I seeing that? And how should I be? If it moves me, in the heart, or it makes my brain start to fire, my next question is, what do I need to learn from this? And how can I take this thing obviously hit me somewhere and made me think or feel. And if it does, then I'm taking that as a cue that I need to ask, why is that hitting me and how do I need to incorporate that? So um, the number of people who've done it, there's so many, and some of them may be famous, some may be friends, some may be relatively anonymous, but I don't want to be anybody else. I realize I'm me and this is all I got. So um, I'm inspired daily by countless people.
Oh, I love what you said about the video, Matthew McConaughey, and and inspired by his future self 10 years from now. And I can tell you something because you love mm, new things, new ideas. So I committed to do 1,111 episodes of this podcast. Okay, by the end of the year. And what I start with was to record the last episode. And you know what I did? I did an interview with myself at the time when the podcast episode will be published. So I interviewed myself. What are you doing now? How do you feel, etc., etc. And this inspires me as well. And I think it's a good idea for other people as well to see where they are now and where they want to go. Yes, I
I love
feel
it.
totally aligned. So my next question is, how do you inspire other people?
Hmm. Well, I guess I've had some good feedback, so I try to make myself available on podcasts. I write books. I enjoy speaking. Um, I've realized for me the big shift for me with inspiration, both um, outward and inward, is that for me, I have to do it in person. So I know people watching this isn't in person, but you and I are having a live conversation right now, Caroline. And for
Yeah.
me, I realized that I spent too many years, almost wasted years, trying to be perfect in trying to craft the websites and craft the online courses and craft the books and the articles and the programs and the PowerPoints and the posts and all of that was pretty, I want to say, was completely useless because it was part of the journey to get me to where I am. But I spent so much time alone trying to be perfect when what I really needed to do was be personal. And I need to be in front of other people in groups, on the phone, in podcasts, some way interacting with people where that's where I get the real cues come from human beings, not from social media, not from likes, not from um, those inanimate things, if you will. So I find that I'm actually inspiring more people, perhaps on the days when I don't even turn on my computer. So I love when I can go a week without checking social media at all or posting anything. And I had two of the best weeks of my career in the last 2 weeks, and they were 4 or 5 days I didn't even turn my computer on. So not one time I didn't go through, and I wasn't doing it on my iPad or on my phone either. I was in meetings, I was on the phone, I was interacting live versus trying to set traps and put stuff out there to get people to contact me. And so my inspiration comes from other people. And I like to think that hopefully my inspiration is similar, is a sense of try to connect and touch as many people as I can, but doing it more live and less on social.
Wow, I understand. It's you talked about fear of criticism before, and I think most of the people have fear of missing out. And then we hang out on social media all the time and forgetting the live experience, the live conversation. It's a call. Even voice messages are not covering this, I
Right.
think. Yeah,
Well, I
because
have I actually created an assessment called find your wild factor, and it's on my website, but we can put it in show notes too. Um, it helps you measure your life. In 4 minutes, you can measure your life from finances, health, career, relationships, and fun. And what people find from this is what they're giving up, what they're sacrificing for different parts of their lives. And I've had thousands of people take this, and it helps them figure out what they learn in this is where they're making sacrifices in life. But they also, most people who take this and then they read the 19-page report, they find out that there's an infinite number of things that they could be doing. So while you're listening to this podcast, you could be taking a walk, you could be watching a million other podcasts or listening to a million other podcasts, you could be sleeping, you could be napping, you could be playing Candy Crush, you could be on Facebook, you could be on TikTok, you could be, there's just so many things, and everything we do is a sacrifice for everything else we could be doing. And once you realize, one of the most valuable things I teach in sessions, or at least I hope to share and people to embrace, is there are an infinite number of things you could be doing. So there's no reason to worry about what you're missing, because the list is endless. And searching and looking at what other people are doing is a complete waste of time. I mean, literally, it's a waste of time, and figuratively, is a waste of time. That there's so many things, you're never going to see it all. So when you can stop, interestingly for me, the less I started checking on social media, the more I started connecting with people. Where I
Mhm.
use social media to try to connect, but then I found that I had more time to do podcasts and do interviews and meet people for lunch or meet people for coffee, or whatever that is. So that fear of missing out is a huge, huge, huge problem right now. The combination of fear of missing out and the worrying about surviving, not thriving, that those two things go hand in hand. You're so worried about not knowing what's going on that you don't enjoy what's going on.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's my, like, just get out there and do it. And then, like, when you're really having fun and you're in the moment, you don't check your phone at all, because you're having fun. You don't, it shouldn't matter what else is going on.
Yes, that's so true. Yes, it's about distractions and also focus. So I would say focus on the thing you do right now, commit to it, and never look back. So it's like fear of missing out or buyer's remorse, or, yeah. So
Like
it's a mental.
the best piece of advice I would give people in that is, I read it in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week. I don't know Tim, though. I would like to meet him. He seems like a fascinating guy. Um, is when I read his book 7, 8 years ago, I turned my phone off, and my phone has not rung or vibrated in 8 years. I've never turned it back on. So my phone doesn't vibrate, it doesn't flash light, it doesn't ring ever. It doesn't connect to my watch. I have no idea my phone is ringing unless it happens to be face up and it's on my desk and I see it, or I'm sending somebody a message on my phone and the call comes in. But otherwise, I don't know there's a call. And so I tell this at sales conferences, and people say, "Well, my clients would never let me do that." I'm saying, my clients are worth between 50 million and $1 billion. Like, they're
Mhm.
pretty demanding, but they can appreciate that you're busy and you're in the thing that you're in. If somebody has an emergency, they should call 911. They shouldn't call me.
Yes.
So, like,
Oh,
like, that's not, so this
oh,
whole not being distracted by notifications on your phone, notifications on your screen, there's something to just being in the moment and not being distracted. And it's disrespectful to other people to look away. It's disrespectful to check
mm,
your phone or your watch. And I just caught that moment, and I would say my life started changing dramatically, around that time, that I got rid of the distractions and I worried about all the things that I could be missing. Because what I was
wow.
really missing was, I was missing out on all the things I was doing, and all those projects, all those conversations, all the things I did were constantly being interrupted. And I also found, as a writer, it's much easier to, like, writing for 10 hours straight is way more productive than writing for an hour for 20 separate hours. There's something about getting into the flow. Or it doesn't have to be that long. It could even be an hour, something you do for an hour and dedicate your time. my guess is you're far more productive than you would be in 10-minute increments if you kept getting interrupted, because your mind changes and you get out of the focus and the deep attention to it. So, for me, that the biggest change I had to move away from fear of missing out and getting away from surviving and moving toward thriving was all about getting rid of distractions.
Wow, this is the best advice. Thank you so much.
That's
I
why
have
I
to
saved it
laugh.
for last.
Oh, yes, yes. And
Reward the people who stuck around and didn't leave early. But that's no, it was the best advice I got. So for me, that
Mhm.
moment of always being present, it always sounded very much like something the Dalai Lama might say, and I couldn't relate to it. But once I realized, I mean, try it. If you have any skepticism with this and you're listening, try a project that you really that's important to you, whether it's crafting a letter, fixing your resume, working on a presentation, anything. I don't care if it's ceramics, clay, artwork, anything. Just do something and turn everything off and see how quickly you can get something done, or how well you can get something done with zero distractions. And once you do it once, I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you can not be yanked around in different directions.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And my next question is, what are your gifts and talents?
Oh, if you're asking me or asking my mother, so the show's not long enough if you ask my mom. My
Mhm.
gifts and talents, I mathematician, so very good with numbers. I happen to have, I would say I have an uncanny um, combination of IQ and EQ. So I did very well in school. I was given a big brain, but I was also born. I was a caring kid as a young kid, but then my parents got divorced, and so I, as the oldest kid, took a lot of responsibility and always became super sensitive um, to people's feelings around me, just being that person. And a lot of people have that scenario. So that combination of taking the intellect and marrying it with the curiosity of what makes people tick. It's why in the financial world or in the consulting world, when everybody's selling commodity, the same products, the same strategies, why why do I make 10 times or 50 times what the average person makes in my field? I really believe it's not about the brain and it's not about the intellect, though I can't discount those and I can't remove them. It comes from being really curious. And so that curiosity and somehow finding, if you can marry some technical ability or specialty you have with some interpersonal ability you have, whether it's the ability to speak or the ability to listen or the ability to be curious. um, I I probably think my superpower at this point, even though I get paid to communicate with people, all of that comes from learning to listen more and ask questions, and which is ironic, since I'm on a podcast where I'm asking no questions, you're asking all the questions and I'm just giving answers. The value comes from being curious and asking people questions and paying attention to the answers, and if you don't know, ask more questions, and that will tell you everything you need to know. So if you can know your customer, which you're going to know from knowing your customer and what they need is way more important than knowing your product or your service.
Mhm.
And I think I've developed a hell of a skill with that.
Wow. Okay, I ask another question. You encouraged me to do this, to be curious.
Please.
Okay, when people reach out to you after listening to this episode, do you have a special offer or service? You mentioned already the test
Sure.
they can
Yeah,
do.
if you want to take I will have 3 new books out by June. Be the Giraffe is probably the best one for most audiences. There's a couple of finance books too, Giraffe Money and Giraffe Money Essentials, but Be the Giraffe is the one about reaching higher in life. I would say that the best offer would be the Wild Factor. Find your Wild Factor. chrisjarvis.com or chrisjarvis.me/wildfactor. If you put in my last name, Jarvis, Jarvis, then you can get the 19-page report for free. So instead of paying $20 US, you can make it free. Anybody can get it anywhere in the world. It's going to be in English. It's not going to come in German or French um, or any other Senegalese or any other language, but it is in English. So if you want a 19-page report that will help you understand what you prioritize, what you sacrifice, how to leverage your natural abilities, how to spot how some of your natural tendencies might be negative, and how to improve the area of your life that you sacrifice the most. All of that is free, and you can get that at findyourwildfactor.com.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much. And also for this interview. I had an amazing time and I will watch the replay. Thank you and
Thank you,
see you
Caroline.
in the next episode.